Another article on the reversion. I published this back in April of 2023. And this is about a historical and a patristic account of Julian the Apostate's failed speed run to rebuild the Temple of Jerusalem. So, let's see how long this is. Yeah, I could probably just read this. It's not that long. It's probably like a 5-minute read. Being the nephew of St. Constantine the Great, Emperor Julian the Apostate, let me make this bigger, was raised by Christians with an education in the faith. Through his conversion to Neoplatonism and growing disdain for Christianity, he persecuted Christians by avoiding making public martyrs out of them, instead resorting to psychological and social pressure. While Julian favored the pagans, his enmity towards Christianity was so great that he set out to discredit the prophecies of Christ and thus prove Christianity to be false. After gaining political favor with the Jews through social and political manipulation, he undertook the impossible task of rebuilding the Temple of Jerusalem. As an educated man, Julian understood the thrust of Christian anti-Jewish polemic, writes E. Michael Jones. Julian's political pandering to the Jews could be seen in a letter he wrote to them in which he promised, "I will use all my zeal to make the temple to the Most High God." So this is a pagan, right? It's like you can see a lot of parallels with Trump already, because he's not a Christian, he's not a religious person, he's a pagan. And it's like, what is he doing getting involved with rebuilding the temple? Like, why would a pagan care about that? Why would he be pandering to these Jews? So in an audacious display of pride, the apostate nephew of St. Constantine the Great effectively chose to engage in a battle of wills in an attempt to force God's hand, as Jones states. Julian was going to put Christ's promise to the test, as it is written, "Not one stone will be left here upon another." Excuse me. All be thrown down. So Julian began a speed run to rebuild the Temple of Jerusalem. The removal of the centuries-old rubble from the destruction of the Second Temple went surprisingly well, to the point where its foundation was exposed. Eusebius documented that Jewish women used their garments to help carry away the earth removed by diggers busy with making room for the new foundations. Saint Ephrem the Syrian wrote that the Jews raged and raved and sounded the trumpets. Okay, remember the trumpets, how that plays a big role in the rebuilding of the temple? And that all of them raged madly and were without restraint. According to Eusebius, St. Cyril of Jerusalem predicted dire consequences for the day lime was mixed to make mortar for the foundation stones. This is a wild story. Like, why haven't like most people heard this story before? This is crazy. St. Cyril's prediction began to unfold just moments before construction would begin. As Eusebius recalls, there arose a huge storm. The earth shook and huge balls of fire burst forth from the ground and continued to do so through the next day. Instruments melted, workers were burned to death. Strange crosses appeared on clothes and bodies. A luminous cross shone in the sky, and the enterprise had to be abandoned. A violent tremor caused a portico to collapse, killing a number of workers. A similar vision of this cross and light had been seen by St. Constantine in his conversion. However, the great saint's nephew Julian was not in Jerusalem to witness this miraculous event, as he was on a military campaign in Persia, which he did not return from. Here's an image. I actually paid for this because I couldn't find any artistic depictions of this event. And this one I found, I had to pay for the rights to have this image. So please enjoy that, because I paid money for it. It's an engraving. St. Gregory the theologian also documented the event, stating that the Jewish women who had been carrying the dirt with their clothing had rushed to a nearby church for shelter once the earthquake started. And as they reached the door, which was open, suddenly those doors closed, as if by an invisible hand. It is reported unanimously and held for certain, wrote St. Gregory, that when they tried to open the doors of the church, flames that burst forth from the inside prevented them to forcing the door open. The scene described by St. Gregory is violent. Some lost their limbs, others completely destroyed by the flames. What the saint concluded is that denial of this miracle is due to the unbelief of the miracle working power of God. This lesser-known event is largely avoided by secular historians, likely due to its inexplicable result, yet E. Michael Jones refers to it as the most ambitious construction project in history from a theological perspective. Even the Roman historian Marcellinus recorded the event. Julian thought to rebuild at an extravagant expense to the proud temple once at Jerusalem, and committed this task to Alypius of Antioch. Alypius set vigorously to work and was seconded by the governor of the province when fearful balls of fire breaking out near the foundations continued their attacks till the workmen, after repeated scorchings, could approach no more, and he gave up the attempt. So again, it's just corroborating these reports that you have a pagan historian. The saints are also attesting to this happening. Although the historical accounts from both pagan and Christian sources documented the event in varying details, the most consistent report is that the construction came to a halt due to a fire and earthquake at the very least. So you have the only conflicting reports were, did the fireballs emerge from the ground or from the sky, not if there were fireballs or not. St. John Chrysostom comments, even today, if you go into Jerusalem, you will see the bare foundation. If you ask why, and this was, obviously 4th century, or what was he, 5th century? No, I'm sorry, 4th. If you ask why this is so, you will hear no explanation other than the one I gave. We are all witnesses to this, for it happened not long ago, but in our own time. This great miracle was followed by another act of God, which is seen in the death of Julian, who was killed by the thrust of a spear during his military campaign in Persia. Even during this campaign, Julian had been giving strict orders to the construction of the temple in Jerusalem, which he considered to be of great importance. According to Orthodox tradition, it was the Roman soldier Saint Mercurius, martyred a century prior, who thrusted the spear into Julian's side. This Saint Basil the Great, an old schoolmate of Julian, prayed to Saint Macarius to help him and had a vision where he saw Christ in heaven telling Saint Macarius to go and strike the enemy of those who believe in me. The holy martyr left immediately, and returning after some time, he told his divine master, "Thy orders are accomplished. Julian is exterminated." And here's an icon of it. Wild. And maybe, is that, okay, so that's St. Macarius, and there's St. Basil the Great in the background there. St. John Chrysostom expounds upon the death of Julian and his failed speed run to rebuild the temple by attributing it to the Jews' failure to realize that what they were attempting was impossible, since it was in direct defiance to God's decree. What God has reared up and wishes to remain, no man can tear down, Chrysostom writes. In the same way, what he has destroyed and wishes to stay destroyed, no man can rebuild. By divine intervention of the Lord himself, Christ's prophecy in Mark 13:2 was preserved, and not a single stone was laid in Julian's defiant attempt to rebuild the temple. Because remember, this happened as they were about to start laying the foundation. They had excavated the rubble from the destruction of the second temple, and this happened. God put a halt to it as they were about to lay the first stone. So they really put Christ's words to the test. Even if the quake happened moments after the construction began, the literal words of Christ's prophecy would have been falsified. So even if they did lay that first brick, just all it would have taken was laying that first brick, and it would have been negated, that prophecy. But God didn't even allow that one brick to be laid. With this in mind, Christians should be aware that once God allows a single stone to actually be laid in the rebuilding of the Temple of Jerusalem, it is surely a sign that the end of the age is near. And that was based on, I didn't know anything about this. I never heard this story before. I got this I think there's a whole chapter dedicated to it in The Jewish Revolutionary Spirit by E. Michael Jones. So when I was reading this, I was completely enthralled with it. I had no idea that this happened. And again, it's wild that this is like lesser known Christian history. If only all these Christian Zionists knew that this happened, right? So, yeah, I wrote this back in 2023. And anytime that these kind of discussions come up, I reference people to this because I did a lot of work kind of like distilling. There's a lot more to this story, but I kind of tried to distill like the important events that occurred here. But there's a lot of accounts of this happening. Like it's undisputed. It's just like, yeah, secular historians don't want to talk about it because it's inexplainable how all these reports, pagan, Christian, they all collaborate together, and it's just a matter of like like how the miracle occurred and not if it did occur. So it's inexplainable from a materialistic aspect, like these secular historians, they don't know what to attribute this to, so they just largely ignore it. But yeah, and I don't know how much of the hagiography is like part of, some kind of they took liberties with it or whatever. I'm not a hagiography person. I don't know how exactly these stories are used, but that's how it's written in the Lives of the Saints there. So I believe what's in the Lives of the Saints until I'm told that it means something else by someone who knows what they're talking about. But all right, well, that's all I've got here. I think that's all I had. Yeah, that was the last thing on my list. So I did want to just bring some Orthodox perspective to that because, like I said, this whole topic that we just covered about, Trump being this kind of messianic figure, it's largely covered by these fringe groups, like these evangelicals that are obsessed with end time stuff. And then, in the rabbinic Jewish community, which are like unless you're like following that stuff, you're not seeing any of that. You may from time to time just see these news reports of these rabbis like kind of making a big spectacle out of what Trump is doing with Israel. But now the context. Now you know what they actually think of him and the importance that they place on him as a figure in their world history. So I don't think any of this is real. I think that they're just all deluded, and they've been doing this throughout history. Again, this is just a cycle where because again, they believe that they are ushering in the Messianic age. They've always been doing this. Every century, there's been something like this where they have this massive, big historical figure emerge that it's like, this is it. This is the guy. This is our guy that's going to bring about the conditions for the Messiah. Every century, you can see this happen, sometimes multiple times per century. And again, there's that whole concept of the reincarnation. So it's like they think these are historic figures, previous messiahs that are reincarnating new bodies and, leading them into their freedom. So yeah, that, it's all just a deception. And then the evangelicals play right into it because they just believe the Jewish narrative and they go along with it. And they're like, they're just on the other side of it. And they're saying, oh yeah, this is it. They're ushering in the Antichrist. Like, it's like, okay, maybe like, and I'm sure a lot of this, like the point here that I'm trying to make is like, this probably will be how it plays out, but it doesn't mean it's this event. It could be, but history shows that it usually isn't until it is. I'm like, how do we know when it is? When that first brick is laid. So anything up until then is just completely, it's like, well, here they go again, So there's not really much point in us like really putting a lot of focus on this, but I hope that this was helpful to like contextualize what all this messianic craze is about. So, all right, that's all I've got. So yeah, thank you for all the support, everyone who donated. You can go check out, like I said, my content hub is over on Substack. That's where you could access the entire archive of my work for the past going on 4 years, I believe. And if you get behind the paywall there, you'll gain membership to our book club. So looking forward to that. Stay tuned for it, and we'll see you next week. Yeah.